In a previous video, I went through my process of how to escape the gas, how to control yourself in the media storm of a release of a new camera. And that particular camera was the Fuji X100VI. Today, the camera of topic is the Panasonic S9. So essentially what we're having here is Panasonic doing the inevitable switch to full frame. And this is not new. They've been here for some time. But I think them circling back to paying homage to such an amazing Micro Four Thirds camera that they had, or a series of cameras, street orientated, compact in size, very attractive to look at. But them circling back to elevate that package from Micro Four Thirds over to their newly supported or newly architected full frame, ecosystem is what you would call it. I think it says a lot about the future of Panasonic and their endeavors in full frame. I'm not quite sure what it says for Micro Four Thirds, because still they're releasing the Lumix GH line, and the new one is just like turning heads again, as it's done with the GH6 and GH5 and so on and so forth. So I'm still not willing to say that this is a nail of any type in any type of coughing for Micro Four Thirds, but it is interesting and it is nice. And I think as an enthusiast, and as a camera enthusiast, right? Because I think photographer and camera enthusiast are two completely different things, albeit they're related, but they're two completely different things. I really feel like it's always nice to see things evolving, things moving forward. So, Micro Four Thirds is always near and dear to me, but also, if it's full frame, it's full frame. And hopefully 10 years from now, we'll be having this discussion, and then we've got some new sensor size, or full frame is no longer the flavor of everyone's choice, or it's more so medium format. I don't know, who knows? But I say all of that to say I sat down and I did some homework on the Panasonic S9 as it relates to me, because right now the only Panasonic I own is the G7, and I quite love that thing. It's actually I'd say it's a fairly common part of my videography kit, and it's not even amongst the most capable of Panasonic cameras from that Micro Four Third world. So I quite like Panasonic as a brand. I quite like I like their menu systems. I like the layout of their cameras. They're not often great to look at, but this S9 really addresses that in a big way. So it's pulling at me. It's very much pulling at me. But there are a few things that really aren't lining up for me. And I want to give them in the context of my previous video, where I said to you, if you're gun-ho on having this camera, upgrading your camera, and you think this is the one for you, well, you have to do the math, right? Are these new features going to 1x, 10x, 15x, 50x your production or your output quality? Are these new features really that big of a deal? Are these new features something that completely changes your workflow? And if you think that's the case, then my solution to this is really to just find a project and execute on that project. And then you'll have all the answers you need of F to spend your money. Here we are again. The context that I just laid down is super important, because I think this is the piece before you get to that bit, before you pull the trigger, right? Like, what is it about this camera that is really calling me? And I think we all get caught up in the media storm when the camera is released, and we get caught up in our favorite creators creating, and we're so in awe of what they're creating and the tool that they're using. It's like, you know what? I need that too. Not entirely a bad thing, not entirely a false thing, but it's a thing nonetheless, and it needs to be controlled, right? And And I say that to say you still have to make your list of pros and cons of if the camera is suitable for you. And for me, there's these two things that's really gnawing at me when it comes to the S9. And I think I'm happy to wait this one out. I want to invest. I'm really curious as to what a full frame Panasonic product looks like. And I know this isn't their first go at it, and their first iterations were pretty well received. Plus they've got some clout with that mount alliance with Leica, so on and so forth. So you could possibly, if you can afford it, get some super nice glass for the ecosystem. But here's my two takeaways of why the S9 really doesn't cut it for me. Number one, no physical shutter. No physical shutter is such a strange thing to me. And I get it. We're in this place where we have the global shutter, and that's doing like phenomenal things. And then we've had the previous iteration of that, and these are all Sony things, right? The previous iteration of that was like the A1 or A9, I think. What the hell is the Sony called? I think it's the A9. So it's essentially this full frame camera that's able to capture images at like, I forget what it was, like 20 something frames a second or something like that. It was nuts. But I still think those guys had a physical shutter. The reason a physical shutter is so important to me, it's the reason I never quite adopted mobile photography or cell phone photography or iPhone photography, whatever you call it. There's this lack of feedback that I cannot ignore when shooting on something that does not have a physical shutter. And it's something that the sound alone can't suffice. I need to feel it. So much so that I remember shooting on the Lumia 1020, the Lumia 1520. Those were those Nokia cameras, the Windows mobile cameras. They had a physical shutter, and it was so satisfying. And I went ham on those phones for about 2.5 years. That's probably what got me into like street photography. But those cameras felt so nice. And I think at one point there was a Samsung Galaxy that had dual aperture. So you would hear something moving around it, and that was kind of nice. But all in all, I need to feel the click of a shutter in my camera. This is what, to me, solidifies the soul of a camera. This is what connects me with that moment in time that I'm capturing, my creative vision, and then there's the hard stamp. Boom, shutter sound, delivered and sealed. I need it. And to not have it, like every time I've tried shooting a few of my cameras in silent mode, it just doesn't feel right. And I'm fully aware this is a me thing, and I want to give you guys this context because I feel like it's important for you to really dig deep and understand you as a creative and as a photographer, and the connection to your tools and what that is and what makes it so important for you, because it makes these buying decisions so much easier, right? So yeah, the lack of a physical shutter, I'm not sure if I can say it's a strange thing because of how the industry is moving and how great the technology is and how fast these processes are and the bit rate, the amount of data that these processes can move and save to the cards, and the data throughput of the cards. Like, all that stuff is super dope. So I can't say it's a strange thing, but I need a shutter. And my second piece, everything I've seen of this camera, it's a beautiful camera. I really like what I see, but there is the lenses that are available for it are not as compact as the camera itself. Now, maybe it's just me. Call me vain, but I like to know that my camera setup is also attractive to look at, right? And that's why I look at certain lenses, and although we're looking at the specs and this many blades and the bokeh looks like this and there's no fringing and all of these technical things, if the lens just doesn't look good on my camera, I'm gonna have to pass. I can deal with a not so good looking camera because I own a Panasonic G7. It's not the greatest looking camera. In fact, it's quite ugly, but whatever. But part of the allure of the S9 is really and truly how beautifully it's designed, how beautifully it's put together. And I don't want to ruin that by putting on lenses that weren't made for the compact nature first. Bit of a misstep for me. And then also I think about, well, what could Panasonic do that would get me over here in terms of an S9 II or III later on down the line. I don't think Panasonic is in a place to come out with a specific line of compact lenses only for this one line. I don't really see that happening unless this thing is flying off the shelves. And the initial reviews are great, but there's a lot of other nuances, I would say, of the camera that necessarily aren't a big deal for me, but I get why they're a big deal for other people. But these two things to me are weighted so much. There's so much weight to these two pieces that I can say, you know, I'm okay. I'm okay not stepping in over there yet. I'll give them some time to let the line mature for them to get a better idea of where they want to take the line, and then I'll check it out later. And then the pieces of context that I promise you, once again, Micro Four Thirds is really showing its value here. Is it the GX87, GS85? I forget what that Panasonic Micro Four Thirds beloved street photography camera was, but it's a beautiful camera. I think it can be had for a great price today. You probably get it from anywhere from $500 to $700, depending on the quality of it used, I would say, depending on how well it was kept. And it's one of those cameras that it's so good at what it does. What it does, it's compact, it's beautiful to look at. There's serious lenses available for it. It's a nondescript, very discreet camera to carry around. It's so good at this that you almost will learn to work around its cons. And its cons are Micro Four Thirds. And I'll always say that, as much as a Micro Four Thirds fan that I am, there's some real cons about shooting that ecosystem, and you need to be about your technical business. You need to know what you're shooting, and you need to know how to maneuver the settings on your camera and the exposure triangle to get a great image from Micro Four Thirds. Try not to say anything about noise. But for me, I think Panasonic is onto something pretty strong here with the S9 series. I think it just needs a little bit more time to bake. Maybe we need more time to see some compact lenses come out. Maybe we need some more time for some of the Chinese brand lenses or lens manufacturers to come out with suitable lenses specifically for the system. But other than that, I think I'll stay away. But I have been paying attention to some of my favorite creators that have been using it, and I can honestly say it's an impressive piece of technology nonetheless. Just not for me. But anywho, if you are new here, thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video and the conversation, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button and give me 2 more videos. If you've got some time, go back and watch the last 2 videos so you can gain an idea of my style and my perspective, and I would love to have you as a subscriber. But yeah, thank you again for your time. My name is Ramon. I'm out of here. Peace.